Alright, welcome back everyone. This is Shadow Drake, and so the topic of this video will be the select instruction. Alright, so now that we've talked about the set register instructions and the branch instructions, now we're going to go to a slightly more complicated function, and that's going to be the select function. The reason I'm going over this one is because this is one of those that allows you to choose a value based on whether your condition is a 1 or a 0. And so it's fairly simple. Select. And as you can see from the syntax, there's R0, which is what it writes to. A is what you're checking against to see if it's 0 or 1. If A is 1, then R0 becomes whatever constant or value you put in B. If A is 0, it'll become whatever constant or value you put in C. This works with B and C can be registers, same as A. Can also be constants. And so just hovering over the instruction doesn't seem like it'll have much information, but we're gonna use this. So to kind of highlight how this is going to be used, we are going to do kind of like a example. And this is going to be something you're probably going to see, maybe not in this capacity, but something similar. So we're going to pretend this dial is some kind of input or device that you're checking. So let's say when it's below 4, we want this LED to be red. When it is above 5, we want this to turn green. Any other state, we want it to be blue, just for simplicity's sake. So we're gonna do this with the select function. Then I'm gonna have another video where we're gonna do it with the branching instructions. All right. Oh, before I get started on this, I don't think I've ever gone over any in previous videos, but when you are looking at information on a device, I forgot to mention that you can always click on the orange logic parameter to get a little bit more detail about it. And this is how you can tell what colors, for example, you need for the LED. As you can see, we're going to need 0 for blue, 2 for green, 4 for red. It's not 100% perfect, but it can give you some idea how to work with these parameters. All right. So with that, let's define some constants. So let's define blue. I believe that was 0. Define green was 2. Define red was 4. Yeah, if I remember that correctly. Let's see. Yep, green 2, red 4. Alright. Now, I might be using those, but keep in mind that you could also use color.blue, and that should translate to a 0 for this. But one interesting thing that I found out is that this doesn't work when you define a value. And another weird thing that sometimes it just doesn't work when you put it as one of these arguments. Like for some reason, sometimes it may not work here, and I don't understand why. You see, like right there, it didn't work for red. I don't know if I had some extra space, something, or whatever, but you could use that for color blue, but just so that I don't have to keep typing this out, I'm just gonna rename it to blue, green, and red, you know. All right, so let's alias LED color. You're gonna be R13. Change LED color to LED color. We're gonna have this on state for the lever, and we're just gonna get rid of this part right here. So now here's the thing. When we're gonna work, one of the advantages we're working with the set register instruction is it changes a value from wherever it is to a static 0 or 1. This is extremely useful for logic functions such as and, or, nor. It really does help simplify that and get you to the point. I'm gonna try not to use these, but I'm just letting you know that is a definite advantage of that, because these functions work on the entire bit. So if you're trying to and 4, binary, that is 1 0 0. And if you're going to try to AND it with 2, that'd be 0 0 1 0. So it's going to look at this, and we should get an answer of straight zeros because of that, just because none of these bits actually lined up. And so because of that, you can make a set register function to check something for 4, and you'll just get a 1, 1 or a 0, and then when you add a 1 or a 0 together, that's it just simplifies it. But I digress a little too far on that. So, like I said, we want it to be red when dial count is less than 4. We want it to be green when dial count is greater than 8. And then dial count otherwise. We're just going to keep that there. So let's start kind of going on it little by little. So let's do the red function first. So SLT, we're going to use R0. We're going to check dial count based on 4. Now, we're going to do the select function for this. And we're going to put that for LED color. We're going to check R0. Now, if R0 is true, that means it is less than 4, then we want it to be red. Otherwise, we want it to be blue. We're going to have an issue later as we go along with this, but let's work it a little bit at a time, just to show off how you can kind of debug issues. So we're going to export to easier to read. See, this just turns it on or off. And as you can see, the value is less than 4, so it is indeed red. As soon as it goes to 4, it should turn blue. Perfect. When it goes back to red. This is going to be a good visual for you to see how this works. Now we're going to do the next thing except for green. So we're going to do SGT R1 dial count 8. Now we're going to do the same thing as we did for red, but we're going to notice a problem when I do it this way. If you can guess what is going to happen, awesome. If not, then I'll explain it to you. Keep in mind that we're reading from top to bottom. So what's going to happen first is we're going to check both of our registers. This isn't going to affect anything, but we're going to check whether we should be red or blue. That's awesome. But then we're going to check whether we need to be green or blue. And this is where we're going to have an issue. In a sense, I'm ignoring this right here. And so I'm just going to export it and show it off. As you can see, I'm less than 3. I should be red, but I am now blue. If I go above 8, you see that I turn green. If I turn down, it goes back to blue. So I lost my red state. And this is where you start to have a little bit of troubleshooting you have to do with your code. And so, honestly, probably the thing I need to do here is to have LED color to preserve whatever decision was back here. So when we do that, see, now we're green. Now we should turn blue. Now we turn red. And you see that that essentially fixes that issue. The reason I go with this is because probably one thing that you would eventually program is, for example, checking how pressurized your room is. Let's say that when your room needs pressure, for example, your room needs pressure, it'd be red, it turns on a vent. And it should keep being active until you get to green. And once it hits green, it stops. And this blue state should be whatever a holdover is for the state you're on. And we can actually go on ahead and do that. So rather than being blue, let's just do LED color again, right here. So with that, that should ignore our blue. So we'll export that. So now, if I go too high, it'll be green. When I dip below, it stays green. Now when it goes below 4, we swap to red. You see that it stays red until it gets above 8, which is green. Alright. This is probably going to be something that you're going to need. And it's something like this. It's just these 4 lines should be kind of like a hold the state, the previous state of what you're doing. And unless something triggers a change state, that's what these 2 functions would be. This could be anything. This could be charge state, this could be pressure, and just without a doubt, try to understand how these four functions work together, because I can guarantee you there's going to be a point where you'll want to do something like this. And just knowing this should hopefully get you squared away. But now, before I'm done with this topic, this is done with set register and the select functions. We're going to try to redo this same thing, except we're going to do that with the branching instructions. So when we return, we're going to rewrite this literally the same exact code. Let me add blue again. We're going to add the same code, except with branches. Alright, hope to see you then.